So funny story, I actually recorded this video 5 minutes ago, but there's something that I massively glaringly left out of the entire video. So let's go round 2 here. This is round 1 that you're watching, but this is round 2 for me, discussing today's topic on Kailer Yamamoto, the LTIR situation, and what the Oilers have facing them come Sunday, end of the week. My friends, this is Dolany TV. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Thanks so much for being here. And with that said, I want to get into the housekeeping notes because I ran 10.5 minutes and couldn't even make a point in the last video. If you're new to the channel, what I want you to do is consider also hitting that subscribe button over the course of this video. But I do want to mention, while I've still got the graphic up, thank you so much to those of you who continue to tune in despite not having a YouTube account. You have no clue how much that means to the sustainability and the actual growth of a channel like mine because of the people who are unable to subscribe, tuning in regularly and checking out the content here on Dolany TV. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being an invisible yet very visible, impactful force on changing my life here on YouTube. All right, that's kind of where I left off and started into the commentary on the last video. Friends, Kailer Yamamoto is due to come off of the LTIR on Sunday. The part I left out of that last video, despite making some great points, telling you all about some flights going across the United States and Canada yesterday, is that I forgot to tell you that Kailer Yamamoto is on the plane with the Oilers, going to Detroit with the Oilers, which means he will be available to play for the Oilers 99% chance on Sunday when the Oilers face the Montreal Canadiens. So that's the big deal here, is Kailer Yamamoto is ready to come off the LTIR. That's what we're reading in. Obviously things could change in the meantime, and I will always preface any discussion moving forward with this, since the Evander Kane situation went the way it did, is I will tell you this simply, is if you are expecting big things, if you have any inclination of how things have to happen or should happen, try and figure out the lamest possible outcome for things to happen, and that's what's going to happen. Anytime your expectations are here, set them here, and I guarantee down here is what's going to happen for you every time with the Edmonton Oilers this season, last season, every year over the past 5 I've covered on YouTube. All right? If you expect disappointment, you will never be disappointed, my friends. It's a great line from Spider-Man. Far from home? No way home. No way home. That one. But hey, I tell you, it works. So that's where we're sitting right now, right? As Kailer Yamamoto is due to come off the LTIR. Interesting little tidbit of fact here on Dolany TV. If you checked my massive trade video news from yesterday, or the day before, sorry, you would have heard in the comments section that yes, Puljujarvi was apparently sighted coming off a plane from Arizona into Edmonton over the course of the All-Star break. That is interesting because yes, it is now noted that he is good buddies with Clayton Keller, which is fine. But the bigger news yet there for us Edmonton Oilers fans is if you checked flight data, like I did yesterday, by the way. I promised you a video yesterday. Instead, I did a live stream live from the Rob Ebbison rink in Airdrie, and then proceeded to come home and just check flight data all day. But what ended up happening is I found some really interesting things that I want to run you through. Number one, I put up the community post yesterday that said, guess what? Jakob Chychrun is more than likely headed to Toronto. Why do I have that inclination? Is because Jakob Chychrun was born in Boca Raton, Florida. The interesting part there is that there's this line of flex jets owned by Air Sprint, which is a Calgary-based airline, private jet airline that you can kind of take an ownership stake and kind of direct the jets as you wish if you pay enough money, which I imagine NHL teams have the money to do that, and you can kind of fly them wherever, whenever, however you want. So this flight goes from Boca Raton, Florida yesterday afternoon up to Toronto. That's kind of weird, right? Isn't that kind of off? Like, Boca Raton's the birthplace of Jakob Chychrun, and it goes to Toronto. That flight left Ottawa, headed to Boca Raton, Florida, and then came to Toronto. This is interesting in note of, I don't think necessarily, and I haven't been able to find anything today, that Jakob Chychrun is scratched for the Arizona Coyotes. I will update again, see if there's anything to happen here. But I don't think there's anything of substance that happened for Jakob Chychrun today, anything I've read. But what I'm seeing here is that, taking some bags, taking some stuff up to Toronto before he gets traded there, that's potential, right? I mean, whether the Coyotes or Leafs hired that jet, there is potential that that jet potentially just flew. Potential is the big word I got to throw at you. Just flew some things of Jakob Chychrun's up to Toronto, and that way he's set up ready to go when he has to live out of a hotel for the next foreseeable future. Fun, right? Absolutely fun. Now, this is to get back to that Jesse Puljujarvi thing. Another thing I learned checking the flight data yesterday is that there was an airline jet that Daryl Cates has a controlling stake in that flew from Edmonton to Arizona sometime during the All-Star break. I think it was February 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, and then returned same day. Get back to that comment on my YouTube channel that says, yes, Puljujarvi was spotted recently getting off a flight from Phoenix. Guess what? Guess what? Does that kind of get a little too fishy for you? Does that smell something's up there, right? And this is then backed up and coupled by an even better one, friends. Just for a little information, the Arizona Coyotes do a lot of their business out of Scottsdale. That's also where that flight came from, Edmonton to Scottsdale, back to Edmonton same day on February 2nd. I believe the Phoenix airport is in Scottsdale, which is a suburb of Phoenix, because you got to think about Sherwood Park, Edmonton. That's how suburbs work in the States, and they're all part of one big giant conglomerate mass of land that has buildings on them, more or less. So there is a flight, same airline, Air Sprint FlexJet, that goes from Vegas to Scottsdale. It had been sitting in Vegas for the entire All-Star break. Heads to Scottsdale yesterday, then gets in the air from Scottsdale and goes to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Anybody got an inclination as to potentially why an Oilers fan would be interested in a flight going from Scottsdale to Minneapolis and then going to Detroit, Michigan? Ho ho, ho ho ho. Right now, Tyson, you're starting to lay out the map here. Why am I laying out this map? Well, what's in Minneapolis that could be of substance for an Oilers fan? Do you know where Blaine, Minnesota is? It's kind of a Scottsdale to Phoenix situation. Blaine is to Minneapolis in the same way. Well, Blaine, Minnesota is the birthplace of one Nick Bjugstad. So, you add 2 and 2 together, right? I figure that Jakob Chychrun is heading to Toronto. Yes, Puljujarvi's been to Phoenix, apparently, and we have a jet owned by Cates that made a trip to Arizona and returned same day. And guess what? As well, there's a jet that goes from Scottsdale to Blaine, or to Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is right next to Blaine, and then heads to Detroit yesterday. So, this is a lot of theories. But when I come and do a video title that says the Oilers are trading someone, that's something we've heard a million times. That's something we've talked about yesterday, day before, day after, whatever. That's something that happens. But I actually put some investigative journalism into this report today. I bled into this report for you and actually put some hard-earned effort into it. Crockpot, crank theory as it sounds, but right, there is a potential that we hear this week or tomorrow, tonight, whenever the trade call happens, if it happens, that the Oilers have traded Jesse Puljujarvi to the Arizona Coyotes for Nick Bjugstad and what? Or have traded Jesse Puljujarvi and what for Nick Bjugstad, right? That's where we're at. And this is backed up, you go back to that massive trade rumor update that I did the other day, is that we have heard from Frank Saravalli that the Oilers have a deal in place for Jesse Puljujarvi. So come together with me, friends. Are you going to tell me that everything that I just laid out to you is purely coincidental? That, you know what, that flight to Toronto, could have happened any other day of the week and wouldn't have mattered. That flight to Arizona and somebody mentioning that, I believe, and not after me prompting them saying it on the community post. No, me saying just what I said in that post 2 days ago, that, hey, yes, Puljujärvi was spotted coming back from Phoenix apparently, and as well that there's a connecting FlexJet flight from Air Sprint, which also did the jet from Boca Raton to Toronto, that anybody can hire for the right amount of money to transport whatever the heck they need to on time and in time. That went from Scottsdale to Minneapolis to then Detroit, and never spent a lot of time on the ground. It was all one day. So there's a lot of movement going on there that just seems to add up to something is happening here. And I think substantially it's for Oilers and Coyotes fans, especially Leafs fans kind of interested as well, I can imagine. But right now you get this heavy pressure that something's got to happen with Kailer Yamamoto coming back. And when I say the least exciting thing is probably going to happen, is I'd expect, yes, Puljujärvi for some reason to go on LTIR. That's kind of what I'm actually expecting to happen here, and unfortunately that's more than likely what will happen. But it's kind of silly to think that there's this much movement behind the scenes in the world that us hockey fans that don't necessarily pay attention to the most baseline data like flight data can be is actually happening. So crackpot, whatever you want to say, conspiracy theories I just throw at you, pay attention. Start sniffing. Start looking for correlations here this week, because the Oilers are up against the deadline, and I would not be surprised if at least one of those three things correlates into a move for the Edmonton Oilers this weekend. Whether it's Puljujärvi for Bjugstad, whether Puljujärvi's just going to Arizona for a pick, whether we get Bjugstad for something else, or Chychrun goes to Toronto. At this rate, I would say the Oilers getting Chychrun is at less than 25%. Because of what I have laid out for you. But I hope you've enjoyed today, friends. Kailer Yamamoto, almost ready to return. He's on the airplane. The Oilers, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this. This is your value add at the end of the video today for the research I did. The Oilers flight left Edmonton at noon today, according to the flight tracker data I had, bound for Detroit, Michigan today. So, the Oilers should already be there. They should be ready to go for tomorrow, I'm telling you. I'm Tyson, this is Stall TV. I'm up on out of here.